The remake of Resident Evil 2 was a revelation, an almost complete reimagining of the iconic PlayStation 1 survival horror game by Capcom. When the publisher announced that they would be giving the same treatment to Resident Evil 4, there was some confusion. After all, RE4 was the genesis of this new form of third-person, action-orientated survival horror in the first place, and they were still releasing ports of it as recent as 2021. What's since become clearer as we've gotten to see more of the game is that despite the same basic format of the game, Capcom still seems committed to changing large swaths of it. This applies to mechanical systems, the environment, enemies, as well as the overall look, feel, and atmosphere of Resident Evil 4. Capcom provided media with an extended hands-off look at the game, which showcased new scenarios from later on in the game, which involved mid-game enemies, a reimagined boss fight, and sequences where you're escorting Ashley, the daughter of the President of the United States. The knife has undergone significant changes. Most Resident Evil enthusiasts know how important the trusty knife is when facing a gauntlet of zombie-like creatures. In the original Resident Evil 4, the knife was a handy, indestructible tool useful for finishing off enemies and conserving ammo. In Resident Evil 4 Remake, the knife has undergone a number of changes that make it far more useful, but you need to be far more conservative with it. The knife has durability and can break in Resident Evil 4 Remake. If it does, you need to repair it at the merchant the next chance you can before you can use it again. And you do, because no matter what your play style, the knife has several important uses. Instead of frantically slashing at downed enemies, the knife can now instantly kill them in a takedown move. But this will reduce its durability but a small chunk. Something that's more useful is being able to use the knife to break free of an enemy grab, which also reduces its durability, but can save you from sudden death. We also know from our initial preview of RE4 that the knife can be used to silently take down enemies from behind if Leon is hidden. Stealth plays a big part in the remake. The biggest new addition is that you can parry attacks with the knife and negate the damage they might cause. Parrying with your knife will reduce its durability, however. This new emphasis on the knife has resulted in at least one major change to one of the big beats of the game, the knife fight with Crosser, one of the game's antagonists. Previously a cinematic sequence that incorporated sporadic quick-time events, button commands that had to be executed within a time limit, the fight in Remake is now an actual knife fight that you participate in. Knife parries obviously play a big part in it as you try and get your own hits in. From the footage we saw, it's a far less exciting interaction, but one that's nonetheless probably a lot tenser as you try to avoid being stabbed. The attaché case for your inventory is customizable. Customizing and upgrading your weapons in Resident Evil is not a new idea, and Resident Evil 4 maintains a lot of the same mechanics of the original. You can upgrade your weapons to improve specific attributes like fire rate, reload speed, ammo capacity, and eventually throw attachments on them to further improve their performance. Here are the examples we saw. Silver attaché case provides an increased drop rate for handgun ammo. Black attaché case provides an increased drop rate for resources. Chicken charm gives plus 100% health recovery when eating eggs. New weapon, the bolt thrower. Leon now has access to a new weapon called the bolt thrower, which appears to be some kind of modified crossbow. It's very possible that this replaces the mine thrower weapon from the original game, and potentially draws inspiration from the same weapon that Ada Wong uses when you control her separate ways, a side story for the original Resident Evil 4. The footage we saw had Leon combining the bolt thrower with a mine, which turned it into an explosive projectile. It's easy to assume that there will be other kinds of combinations we can make for different effects, turning it into Resident Evil 4 Second's version of the series' elemental grenade launcher. Stealth plays a big part in Resident Evil 4 Remake. We've already known that Leon has a new ability in Resident Evil 4 Remake, crouching, and that he can use that to sneak around and take out enemies with his knife if he hasn't been spotted. But the new footage we witnessed showed another element of the original which has been tweaked to incorporate this new ability. In a fight with the Garrador enemy, blind berserkers with enormous claws on their hands, being stealthy is one of the keys to taking them out unharmed. In the original, Leon would have to use the environment to trick them into charging away from him, exposing the weak spot on their back. In RE4 Remake, however, you'll have to be very, very quiet and sneak up behind them, at which point you can deal significant amounts of damage by plunging your knife into them. Like most other attacks, the wild swipes of the Garrador can be parried with the knife, but doing so in this instance will seemingly reduce the durability of the knife. The Garrador's claws are much, much bigger, after all. Resident Evil 4 Remake is a much darker, moodier game. Again, we noted this in our first preview of Resident Evil 4, the remake is much darker, grimier, and overall more atmospheric. A lot of the reason is the dramatic advancements in visual rendering technology. Of course, the original was a Nintendo GameCube game from 2005, but it's not just about the clarity of the details. The original Resident Evil 4 had almost a 1970s Texas Chainsaw Massacre-inspired vibe. Thanks to its art direction and slasher vibes, this was a dramatic shift for the series at the time. Resident Evil 4 Remake almost seems to be reimagined with Resident Evil's original spooky haunted mansion feeling in mind. This is just speculation upon seeing a small portion of the game. Of course, the section we previewed largely took place in the castle location and its surrounds, as Leon meets antagonist Ramon Salazar and his army of zealots. We remain very curious in seeing how meaningful these changes are across the full length of the game. Resident Evil 4 continues to look incredibly sharp and exciting, but it remains to see just how vital and different it ends up feeling. Release date: Resident Evil 4 will be available on the 24th of March 2023 on PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and Xbox Series X, S. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and support my channel.